Egregio Sindaco Nardella, mio sindaco fra l'altro, in quanto ho il privilegio di risiedere in questa bellissima, unica, magnifica città, dottor Di Bella, dottoressa Albrito, Miss Kennedy, è per me un onore e un privilegio portare il saluto quest'oggi del Ministro degli Affari Esteri e della Cooperazione Internazionale, onorevole Paolo Gentiloni, e del Direttore Generale per la Cooperazione allo Sviluppo, l'ambasciatore Pietro Sebastiani, a questa edizione di Unity in Diversity. Vorrei riuscire a trasmettere in pochissimi minuti quanto il governo italiano e in particolare il Ministero degli Esteri siano impegnati a fare con l'imprescindibile e importantissimo ruolo di regioni, comuni e tutti gli altri enti locali su temi che rappresentano senz'altro sfide prioritarie per l'Italia e per tutta la comunità internazionale in questo nostro tornante della storia dal cambiamento climatico alle fonti energetiche, insomma tutto ciò che riguarda il conseguimento degli obiettivi dell'Agenda 2030 per lo sviluppo sostenibile. Consentitemi quindi, per veicolare il messaggio in maniera diretta, di continuare il mio intervento brevemente in inglese. Climate change. Item 13 of the Sustainable Development Goals states climate action. Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts by regulating emissions and promoting development in renewable energy. Why climate change matters? The answer is at least twofold. We have to and we are sustaining adaptability to climate change and mitigation of climate-altering factors, in particular emissions of carbon gases, which are heavily impacting on many partner countries in continents like Africa, for instance. If we do not control climate change, we risk to witness a social and an economic collapse of many of our partner countries. This collapse would be likely to foster a stronger wave of migration and to be conducive also to a further marginalization of those most in need and to radicalization. And radicalization is, as we have seen, a gateway also for terrorism too. Secondly, losing the battle in the control of climate change as per our partner countries would be tantamount to losing the fight for controlling the climate change worldwide, that is containing possibly the increase of temperature within a limit of additional 2 degrees Celsius and no more. And here comes the importance of Target 7 of the SDGs, affordable and clean energy. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. Traditional energy resources have proven an inefficient and cumbersome way to ensure a proper access and diffusion in many countries, particularly in continents like Africa, as I mentioned before, where difficulties linked to production, distribution and maintenance are very hard to overcome. Renewable energies, for instance, are generally off-grid. Thus, by investing in renewable energies, we fight to overcome problems connected to climate change and environmental sustainability, but also to the problems which are connected to distribution of energy produced through traditional means, like thermal power plants, for instance. Solar panels, wind farms, and the like can be installed in local communities and be directly and easily accessible. Renewable energies are much linked to the territory then. They encourage community-based agriculture, agri-food change, and in general, the resilience of local communities. By promoting renewable energies, we secondly fight a battle for human rights. How, for instance, can we assure the right to education if children can barely read after sunset? Or how can we aim at zero hunger, as stated in the SDGs, if we cannot increase agricultural productivity? Finally, strengthening local agriculture, typical produce, and helping to integrate traditional and modern techniques can also be a factor to be used to absorb and reduce carbon gases, thus to control climate change. Besides, Such actions can contribute to preserving biodiversity, ensuring equitable economic returns to farmers, and avoiding land misappropriation and generating employment opportunities and additional welfare. That is why, again, agriculture has always been a priority for the Italian development cooperation. And it is more now that we are committed also in the European Union framework of the so-called Migration Compact to fight the root causes of forced migration through the improvement of local economies and welfare of a population of at least 17 priority countries in the African continent. Besides, the European Union Emergency Trust Fund, which was launched in La Valletta in November 2015, is an additional tool to such an aim that has already started operating and whose total budget has been recently increased thanks to the efforts of the Italian government with other European Union partners. Regarding the overall efforts of Italy to implement the 2030 agenda, we have taken its universal nature very seriously. Domestically, as of now, we are, so to say, looking at ourselves in the mirror in order to finalize a national strategy of sustainable development. The strategy will be presented at the next United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development in New York next July, that is 2017, as part of the Italian, that is, National Voluntary Review. This will also include our external strategy, implemented by the Italian Development Cooperation Strategic Document, which is in the process of being finalized for 2016, 17, 18, and 19. Last but not least, we are also pushing the European Union to finalize strategies as well. The Italian G7 presidency, which is upcoming, and those that will follow, and also the G20 presidencies, will have a crucial leadership role to play in order to firmly move from vision to action in the implementation of the SDGs. This will be the spirit that will guide our presidency, the G7 presidency, in many sectors of the development agenda, from food security to education, from migration to women's empowerment, including a particular emphasis on a continent like Africa. That's the spirit that we want to adopt. And it's fundamentally important because it is also a mandate for every single individual, every single local community and municipality, they want to fulfill the agenda and its goals. Indeed, and I take the chance that I'm in front of such an audience of so many mayors to underline the fact that experience shows that the realization of such an ambitious goal will greatly depend also on actions taken at local level. This is out of any doubt. As stressed by the UN Secretary General, for instance, many of the investments to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals will take place at subnational level and be led by local authorities. The Italian Development Cooperation has always been a strong supporter of local development at local level, at the municipal level, in partner countries based on an integrated and territorial approach. In collaboration with the UN system, we have supported such programs in countries like Albania, Morocco, Mozambique, Colombia, Cuba, and Sri Lanka, which contributed to set up multi-governance mechanisms in support of local economic and social development. At the very core of these programs is decentralization, increased institutional capacity for subnational governments to enhance democracy and transparency, fiscal decentralization, policies for access to land, infrastructures and services, and an enabling environment for the development of small businesses and micro enterprises. And last but not least, supporting an active role of the marginalized and vulnerable people. I should also point out that the Italian law on international cooperation specifically recognizes the absolute importance of territorial partnerships for development and a multi-layered governance structures that is highly inclusive of subnational levels of governments, civil society, and the private sector, all represented in a council called the National Council for Development Cooperation, which includes the private sector, municipalities, regions, and civil society at large. It's a sort of parliament for development cooperation. Let me conclude with just a word on disaster risk reduction, which is very much linked to climate change. More than a decade after the Hyogo Framework for Action, Italy will continue to do its part by committing ourselves to play a constructive role also in favoring an ever vibrant and effective discussion on these issues. Italy, unfortunately, is a prone disaster country, uniquely exposed to a wide range of natural hazards. Earthquakes are not directly linked to climate change, but other disasters like floods, unfortunately, are indeed. We succeeded, nonetheless, in turning some of our weaknesses into strengths, developing an efficient and modern civil protection system with effective governance mechanisms, a highly mobile force of volunteers too, in support of professionals and advanced technological and scientific assets. We cannot but really highly praise them all. The local administrations play an essential role in planning actions of prevention and migration of risks together with the central government. We strongly believe that a better targeting and empowerment of vulnerable people and civil society, together with transparency and accountability, are fundamental to advance disaster risk management across the world. We welcome, therefore, an inclusive and people-centered approach which pays due attention to all the underlying disaster risk drivers, such as conflict and fragility situations, besides the climate change. Allow me finally to reiterate our commitment, Italy's commitment at all levels in supporting the United Nations in the process of implementation of the International Strategy for Disaster Reduction. I thank you all for your time and attention.